Well, just how good is Garrett Greene as a quarterback? How does he compare to the other guys in the Big 12? Most of the lists are not including Greene among the top 5. Other people are saying he is the most underrated quarterback in the league or the country. So, well, how does it all play out? That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to take a look at some slightly different numbers from the ones people have been talking about. Before I get to that, you know what I'm going to say probably. Please share, subscribe, click thumbs up, make comments, click the notification bell, and tell your friends. And after you've done that, click share a few more times. Now, we know about the completion percentage. Garrett Greene completed less than 53% of his passes. All right. That is a number a lot of people just cannot get past. And that's a result of the whole West Coast offense. I know you have to be fairly old and gray to remember days before the West Coast offense when, a 52 point whatever completion percentage was considered pretty darn good. And of course, what was considered most important was whether or not you won the game. And we looked at other ways that quarterbacks managed to do that. And of course, Greene does it by being a leader and by being a runner. But being a leader doesn't translate into numbers. So a lot of people don't pay too much attention. Hey, I'd take Greene just based on that. But let's look at numbers. What I'm going to be looking at is depth of attempt. How far did the ball go in the air? What percentage of passes did a quarterback throw at each depth spot? That's behind the line of scrimmage, 0 to 9 yards, 10 to 19 yards, and 20 or over. I'm going to have a lot of graphics up on the screen. I'm not going to go over every number because that takes a long time and I know people quit watching. So if you are just listening, be aware that you're missing some things, and I will try to leave the graphics up long enough for people who find them of particular interest to look at them more closely. I do want to apologize for the glare on the glasses. I do need to have the computer up and running so I can read some of the material while I've got more down in my hands. And if the camera shakes from time to time, that's Raucus. He is confined to this room while we deal with some health issues. So let's cut him a break. All right. Now, if you follow West Virginia, one of the things you should know is that depth of attempt played a big factor in Greene's success or problems. And it was flipped from where logic says it should be. He did not do as well on shorter passes, and he was just flat out fantastic on the 20 yards or plus. And so as a result, Coach Brown said partway through the season, listen, if you're going to complete half your passes one way or the other, whether they're short or long, they might as well be long. So Greene threw 20 yards or more a lot, more than any of the other quarterbacks. Now, the guys I'm using in this video, along with Greene, Becht, Fifita, Jefferson, and Sanders. I did not include Cam Rising because he's been injured for over a year, and I don't want to use old stats, and we don't know how he's going to come back. And Daniels for Kansas has been injured essentially every season, and it's a smaller, statistical range, and I'm just not willing to bet that he isn't going to be injured again this year. All of the things people, Greene's small, he'll get hurt, and Well, it's Daniels who's had the trouble, not Greene. So let's hope that continue. Well, let us hope that Greene's good luck in that regard continues. Do not wish anything bad for Daniels. No need for that. Now, not necessarily going to be following the order that things are on the graphics that you guys see on the screen, because some of the significance varies. But looking at behind the line of scrimmage to 9 yards, Fifita, who is, some people say, the best, anywhere from first to third on most of the lists, and he threw 65% of his passes less than 9 yards. 65 friggin' percent. That is a lot. And yeah, he completed a lot of them. Now, passer rating on that doesn't end up being very high, because short passes, even if you complete a lot of them, don't accomplish that much more than a run. You have to throw and complete a heck of a lot of short passes in a row, or with one miss, in order to get downfield and score. And how many passes you complete does not decide who wins the game. It's who scores the most points. And if you do that with fewer longer passes, a touchdown counts as much as if you do it with 20 short passes. So let's keep that in mind. Completion percentage does not necessarily translate into scoring. And when you do anything 65% of the time, that tips your hand to the defense. I think defenses in the Big 12, a lot of them are going to be quite different for some of these quarterbacks. You're not going to see as much success this year unless they can change their pattern. And Shedeur Sanders, he was still like 54% of his passes were less than 9 yards. Now, he did very well in the intermediate and the long range. Long range, he had a lot of touchdowns. Now, the thing you have to remember there is sometimes that's the quarterback. Sometimes it's field position. A long pass from the opponent's 35-yard line is a lot more likely to score than a long pass from your 35 or your 15. And, West Virginia and Greene are not afraid to throw deep from their own end of the field. Pardon me a moment. It's a reminder to check Raucus's glucose and take my medications, but we'll continue with the video. Looking, Jefferson, that's 56% of his passes were 9 yards or less. Becht, 60% of his passes 9 yards or less. Garrett Greene, about 40% of his passes were 9 yards or less. So we're looking at 10 to 25% less than these other top quarterbacks. Now, of course, it made sense for Greene to throw a lower percentage short because it was not his strength. And Coach Brown believes in playing to your strength. That's reasonable. But if we flip this now and we start looking at the deep stuff, let's look at where Garrett Greene shines. Because, Garrett Greene's rating, 20 passes or over, is 94.1. And 1 in 4, 24.7% of his passes were 20 yards plus. That is 10 to 13% more than any of the other quarterbacks. And he still, he had 2 interceptions in that range. That's it. That's good. Throwing deep is usually riskier. And his completion percentage was 46.4%. Well, Becht was close, but he threw a lot fewer passes in that range. Sanders, again, 41% of his passes, a high rating. He had more touchdowns in that range. And again, I think that was probably field position and run after catch. You really have to watch film or get some very detailed statistics to know how much the receivers affect some of these numbers. Now, completion percentage they affect a little, but if they affect it a lot, they don't play anymore. So, and compare that, Jefferson, he had 6 touchdowns, throwing 20 yards plus, but he also had 4 interceptions. That's not what you call a good ratio. So when it came, and Fifita, master of the short pass, only completed 34.6%, which is decent-ish, rating of 74.6. He did not do well at the passes where each individual pass counts most. Good on the short stuff, where you have to be able to do it very well consistently to achieve the bigger goal of scoring. He's not so good on, where one big pass, explosive play makes the difference. So he doesn't take the top off the defense. And I don't think that 34% completion rate is going to be enough to make defenses move back. And I think he's young, but he's going to have to improve that number if Arizona is going to have success week to week in the Big 12. There are a lot of defenses that will eat Arizona up unless they can, vary that statistic or just run the guts out of the ball. But looking at it a little bit differently, question is, okay, what does Garrett Greene have to do? Because, a lot of the things when you read, is like, oh, if the quarterback can continue this, they'll be one of the best in the Big 12 next year. Well, continuing, it's not the thing. Getting better is the thing. Coach Brown tells the players, you got to get better. Better tomorrow than today. Doesn't matter how good you are today, you got to be better tomorrow. So Garrett Greene was not good at short passes. Coaches sat down, figured out the problems, had Greene study the tape, figure out what to do. The coaches are working with him. Greene is working with a private coach he's worked with for years. They have specifically worked on the short passing game because they figured out what was wrong. The spring game showed a lot of improvement, and he's got months more to continue improving before the season. So if you look at the numbers from last year, it says, hey, on the big risk, Greene was good, so a lot of points resulted from that, some wins. Not so good on the short stuff. So you ask, can he fix the short stuff? It would only take 10 additional completions. 10. And probably 3 of those are drops because they had to reduce the drops from the beginning of last year. 10 more completions and Garrett Greene's short ratings. Now, I'm not, ratings suggest success. They don't guarantee it. But 10 more completions puts Greene up with everybody else in the short stuff and still leaves him ahead in the long stuff. And they've been working on making him better at the long stuff. He had some things to refine there. So imagine this. Let us say these other quarterbacks do at least as well as they did last year, maybe a little better. I don't know that they have specific things to fix because I don't follow those teams. But if they get slightly better, Greene gets 10 more completions on short passes, refines his long passes, he leapfrogs every one of them. Every one of them. Every one of them. And becomes the #1 quarterback in the Big 12. At least the top 3. He only needs slight improvement to become statistically one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Plus his leadership. Plus his running. So, passing wise, he becomes one of the best in the league, and he's one of the best runners in the nation. What does that add up to? You cannot tell me Garrett Greene is going to be the 6th or 7th best in the conference. He's going to be top 3. If he completes 20 more passes overall, total length, all the lengths combined, 20 more pass completions using the same number of attempts from last year, he ends up with a 60% completion rating. And suddenly everybody has to say, hey, completion percentage isn't a big deal. You know. So looking at the raw stat, just completions, doesn't tell you what you need to know. Looking at the type of completion, and there's a whole lot more way to break these down. These stats are from PFF, and they break things down, you know, left, center, right, left deep, center deep, you know, all of that, and in a lot of other ways. And then your coaches break things down in a lot more detail than PFF does. But if you look at what Greene does well, what he does not do well, what he can do to fix things, Garrett Greene could be scary good. Now, several games late last season, he was scary good. And if he can do that, game in, game out, he's going to scare the whole dang conference. All right, even not covering all of the different numbers, this has run on for a long time. Thanks for listening. Please check out the other videos. Come back and watch some more. There will be some recruiting news, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, probably for sure Monday, Tuesday. And I will do a live video either Tuesday or Wednesday evening. I expect it to be evening, to discuss where the recruiting stands as we come pretty close to filling out the entire 2025 class. All right. Thanks for watching. So long.